I am actually astonishing myself right now that I'm even doing a commentary on the two individuals that you see in this picture, but it's going to reach into a more deeper level and further reach into a deeper reasoning as to why I cannot stand the palm colored feminists. I cannot, I will not ever, ever, ever like them, let alone support them. Not that I ever have or ever will, but this is going to prove even more why I don't. And why I truly believe that toxic femininity is a real thing. So, in this picture, you see Johnny Depp. I don't have to go into detail who he is. Many of us pretty much all know who Johnny Depp is. At this point, he's, I guess you can say, a legendary actor in the game, has been acting. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was probably the first the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think that was like one of his earlier projects back in the 80s. So he's been acting for a while now. But of course, you know, his most notable work is playing Captain Jack Sparrow on the Pirates of the Caribbean series that has been pretty much ongoing for such a long time. I don't know if they're coming out with another one. I kind of hope that they don't, because the series has pretty much run its course. But if you don't know who the woman is, that is his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Now, I can't remember a lot of the films that she's been in, but the one that will definitely stick out to myself and others was when she played Mira in Aquaman, which at this point is hanging on by a thread as far as her probably playing that role, considering the stuff that's been going on with her, stuff that has come out about her and Johnny Depp over the years. Now, they were married for quite some time. I don't know how long their marriage actually lasted, but there was always reports of abuse, a lot of domestic abuse going on in that relationship. So much, in fact, that there has been pictures that have surfaced where she's had bruises on her face and he's had black eyes and bruises on his face, like they were fighting with each other. But of course, in typical lamestream fashion, they made it seem completely one-sided. Think of the whole Chris Brown Rihanna situation. You know how with the whole Chris Brown Rihanna situation, and those pictures came out of her, and then at that moment, at the drop of a hat, Chris Brown's career pretty much was dead on arrival. And I think that was the moment right there where they were ready for it to be dead on arrival, even though at the time he was only out in the industry for at least a good 3 years. But he was taking off like a rocket. The same thing could happen with Johnny Depp here. The only difference is his career was ongoing for a longer time. The reason why I said that is because when the reports came out about abuse with him and her, notice his career started to stall. Like, what's the last time you seen Johnny Depp in a mainstream film? Because I don't think he was in anything last year. Like, he was on a roll. Like, he was pumping out movies, even if it was the Pirates of the Caribbean films. He was making money, and as we all know, Pirates of the Caribbean, that's a Disney property, so he was getting paid very good money right there. Like, that's the film right there that completely solidified his career, where he was probably making millions of dollars per Pirates of the Caribbean film. But it stalled because reports had always came out that there was domestic abuse going on in the relationship between him and Amber Heard, and that pretty much stalled his career, but her career was still ongoing. Now, let me fast forward a little bit here. Now there are reports, and this is why I said her career may be hanging on a thread as far as her playing in the next Aquaman film. As this role, they may be recasting her. The reason why I say that is because there were reports that came out from him that she was just as abusive to him in the relationship as he was to her. And 9 times out of 10, if he was actually hitting on her, it was to defend himself against her vicious attacks. They said they had went to therapy sessions. All of it was on the record. She even came out and admitted out of her mouth, which is why I said her career's on a thread, that she actually was the one that was the more vicious ones in these in the relationship. I even saw a picture where it was of Johnny Depp's finger, where she actually bit a piece of his finger off. Like, I'm not going to put the picture up here, but if you go and Google it, you can see it. And I'm like, wow. Like, it got to that point. So she came out and she admitted that she was just as abusive in a relationship as he was, and it pretty much backs up his claims. But the thing is, the damage was already done, and Johnny Depp at this point, as long as he's been acting, has pretty much now, I guess you can say, all but been blackballed out of Hollywood, because she never came out and said that she was the one that initiated a lot of these attacks on him in order to save her own career. Sort of like with the Rihanna situation, her career continued to go on because she never said anything in saying that she had equal blame into, or shared blame and fault in the domestic violence that was going on in their relationships. And that's why she was still able to keep going, and Chris Brown kind of fell and he had to take all of the blame. And to this day they're still going at him, but I'm glad that now he's laying low a little bit and able to, raise his daughter and get his life back on track, which is something that many of us have been saying for the longest that he needed to do. I'm glad he's finally taken heed to that, because we haven't heard about anything involving Chris Brown in months, and we prefer for it to stay that way because we know how vicious lamestream media, especially those over at TMZ and over at Wendell Williams, can be when it comes to Chris Brown, because they hate Chris Brown with a passion. But anyway, you're probably wondering, Torian, how does the palm color feminazi play into this? Well, the reason why I'm making this video is because I was on Twitter and it was a hashtag going on. It was trending number 1. It said justice for Johnny Depp. So I'm like, okay, what is this all about? So basically the hashtag is talking about how they're bringing up the domestic abuse that was going on in the relationship between him and Amber Heard, and how basically she's taking the blame for, basically not saying anything sooner, and the reason why his career had faltered. Well, I do give her credit for taking accountability, but I do not give her credit for not saying anything sooner, thus hindering his career and pretty much hers continuing to elevate. I don't know where it's going to really go after this, because he caught a lot of hell. He caught a lot of slings and arrows from this. But see, at this point, when he probably tried to say anything, he couldn't really get out what he wanted to say, because it was like a lot of pressure had already fell on top of him. Now, the part where the feminazi comes in, and why I really don't like them, is because when it was just Johnny Depp that they assumed or thought, like many others had thought, that it was just him and a one-sided domestic abuse thing, they came at him hard and just came at him and hit him hard in every at every angle. But when they found out, like the rest of us finding out, or for you finding out listening for the first time, that she had just as much blame in this, instead of them coming at her and leaving him alone, they want to do this. And it's the same thing Trump did. Well, it was a toxic relationship on both sides. That's the same thing that Trump did with the Charlottesville incident. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. So the feminazis are doing the same thing here. Instead of putting all the blame, or most of the blame, on her the same way that they came at him, the guy, they want to say, oh, it was a toxic relationship on both sides. That is nothing more than your typical cop-out. Because in all reality, they would rather that she had not admitted that she had just as much blame in the domestic abuse of that relationship than he did, if not more. I even saw one feminazi coming on there try to run interference for her, talking about, well, they should have talked about this with a therapist or something like that. And someone came and undercut them and basically said, well, they did go to seek therapy, and it was recorded on tape that she admitted that she had just as much blame in the domestic abuse of that relationship than he did. And he was pretty much trying to defend himself. And that person got shut down real quick who wrote that comment. This is why I cannot stand the feminazi, because of what I just gave you right here. They're quick to take the woman's side for the simple fact that she's a woman. But when it comes out that she's displaying toxic femininity, which is something they will never admit to actually being a real thing, even Google won't say that it is, then they're ready to say, oh, it was toxic on both sides. Like I said, that's a cop-out in order to take accountability away from her and still keep it on the man. And like I said, I'm only using them as an example, mainly because I first off, I've never talked about Johnny Depp or Amber Heard on my channel. I think the only time I mentioned her was when I did my Aquaman review 2 years ago. And that was about it. But I'm using this as an example because this is like, it's fresh on my channel, I guess, to discuss this. And I'm using them as an example because I never talked about them. But like I said, I just used Chris Brown and Rihanna as another example. That's a good example to use, to be quite honest. But see, these feminazis, they are another sisterhood that has failed. As a whole, as a collective, whether they are white, black, or any other race, they have all failed. But see, like I said, they're going to do whatever they can to protect, quote unquote, womanhood and women empowerment, that when the woman messes up, they don't even make her take accountability for her actions. They will protect her BS, her fuckery. They will protect it to the end and throw it all onto the men. That's why no one takes them seriously. And these will be the same ones that will say that women can do this and women can do that. They can do all these wonderful things except be accountable for their actions. Accountability is the feminazis' kryptonite, as displayed by the story I just gave you just now. And it's crazy because Amber Heard, like I said, has admitted to what she did. She admitted to it. And instead of them coming out and saying, you know what, I'm glad she admitted to it. I'm glad she's taking blame for her part in all of this. And maybe somewhere down the road, we can go from there. Instead of saying that, they're coming at it with the whole both sides angle, meaning they would have rather she had not said anything and let it fall completely onto Johnny Depp. This is another reason why they do not want a female president. Imagine you had a female president, they would get away with a lot of stuff. Truth be told, that's probably why a lot of feminazis hate Trump right now. But truth be told, when you look at those exit polls, many of those feminazis, quote unquote, voted for him. I'm willing to bet that 53% or more of those white women who voted for Trump, you can't tell me that a good chunk of them weren't feminists. Hell, many feminists are actually married, quite truth be told, and quiet as it's kept. I know it's shocking that some man actually locked that down with all the crap they love to talk about men. And I'm like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to see what their home life is like just for one day. But I just really wanted to come on here to talk about this and just basically just say that the feminists are full of it. I'm glad I came across that hashtag just so I could have a reason to do this video, because it's actually something I wanted to do or talk about for a while now, but I just needed an example to go off of, and this was the perfect one right here. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, please follow me on Twitter, have your notifications turned on, and I will talk to you in the next one.